They said the old dog no longer mattered. They said some things are left behind when a man dies. On the night his father was buried, the son returned home, silent, distant, carrying more resentment than grief. No one knew what words were spoken inside that house. They only saw what happened next. A truck drove into the forest. Snow erased the road behind it, and by morning, there was a rope hanging from a tree. Everyone judged him. Everyone believed they understood the cruelty of that moment. But the truth was buried deeper than the snow. And this story is not about a man who abandoned a dog. It's about loyalty that refused to break, and a miracle that arrived when all hope seemed gone. If this story moves you, stay with us, share it, leave a comment, and subscribe. Because some stories don't just entertain. They remind us what faith, forgiveness, and love still look like in this world. Snow fell without sound, thick and relentless, burying a small Montana town under a pale, endless night. The wind scoured the streets clean, pressed itself against windows, and erased footsteps almost as soon as they were made. Hank Caldwell died alone in a house that still smelled faintly of gun oil and old coffee. He had been a police officer for most of his life, tall once, broad-shouldered in photographs, with a jaw that looked carved from granite and eyes that missed very little. Age had bent him slightly, silvering his hair and carving lines around his mouth, but it never softened his gaze. People said Hank had been strict, difficult, the kind of man who expected silence to mean respect. What they didn't say aloud was that he had been fair, and that fairness had made enemies. The house felt hollow after his death. No radio murmured in the mornings. No boots stood drying by the heater. Only dust, cold air, and the echo of things that would never be said again. Rex lay by the front door. He was an old German shepherd, 12 years at least. His black and tan coat dulled by time and neglect, clumped in places where no one had brushed it for weeks. His muzzle had gone gray, and his back legs trembled when he stood too long. One ear still pointed upward, stubborn and alert. The other folded halfway, a remnant of an injury long past. His eyes, deep brown, tired but watchful, never left the hallway. Rex had belonged to Hank. Not owned, not commanded. Belonged in the quiet way of shared years and unspoken understanding. When Hank stopped breathing in his sleep, Rex had nudged him once with his nose, then lay down and waited. Ryan Caldwell arrived 3 days later. He stepped out of a rented sedan just as the sky began to darken, snow gathering on the shoulders of his long black coat. Ryan was 32, tall like his father, but leaner, his frame pulled tight by tension rather than strength. His face was sharply angled, cheekbones high, mouth set in a line that rarely softened. A short, untrimmed beard shadowed his jaw, more neglect than style. His hair, dark brown and slightly too long, was pushed back with careless fingers, already dusted white by snow. People in town recognized him instantly. Hank's son, the one who left. Ryan nodded stiffly to the neighbors who watched from their porches. He did not stop to speak. His eyes skimmed past them, distant, guarded, as if every familiar face was a question he refused to answer. Inside the house, he stood still for a long time, taking in the silence. His breath fogged faintly in the cold. He looked at the coat rack where his father's old jacket still hung, at the cracked mirror by the door, at the photograph on the wall. Hank in uniform, one hand resting on the head of a younger Rex, both of them alert, composed. Ryan's jaw tightened. Rex rose slowly and approached him, nails clicking softly on the wooden floor. He stopped a few feet away, tail low, but wagging once, cautiously. The dog's body remembered Ryan, even if Ryan seemed determined to forget him. Ryan looked down at Rex. For a brief moment, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe pain, but it vanished almost instantly. He turned away without touching the dog. That night, the storm worsened. The wind howled through the trees at the edge of town, bending them into black silhouettes against the white. Snow slammed sideways, erasing the road, swallowing sound. It was the kind of night that made even familiar places feel hostile. Ryan moved through the house like a ghost, opening drawers, closing them again, touching nothing. In Hank's bedroom, he paused at a small wooden box on the dresser, then pushed it aside, unopened. His breathing grew shallow. Whatever he felt, he buried it deep. When he returned to the living room, Rex watched him quietly. "Get up," Ryan said. His voice was flat, stripped of warmth or cruelty, as if emotion had been surgically removed. Rex obeyed immediately, though it took effort. Ryan fetched an old leash from the hook by the door and clipped it to Rex's collar with quick, efficient movements. He did not meet the dog's eyes. They stepped into the storm together. Ryan drove out of town, headlights carving narrow tunnels through the snow. The road was empty, swallowed by white. Rex lay in the back of the truck bed, exposed to the wind, his body pressed low, fur soaked with melting snow. He did not whine or bark. He had learned long ago that silence kept the peace. The forest loomed ahead, dark and dense. Ryan stopped at the tree line. He cut the engine and sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles went white. His chest rose and fell in short, uneven breaths. Whatever war raged inside him, it left no mark on his face. He opened the door and walked to the back of the truck. Rex tried to stand. His hind legs slipped, weak. Ryan grabbed the leash and pulled harder than necessary. Rex stumbled but followed, snow biting into his paws. At the edge of the forest, Ryan tied the rope around a thick, low-hanging branch. His movements were practiced, almost mechanical. He looped the other end around Rex's neck. For the first time, Rex resisted, not with teeth or growls, but by sitting down heavily, his weight pressing into the snow. His eyes lifted to Ryan's face, searching. Ryan did not look back. He hauled the rope upward, lifting Rex's front legs off the ground. The dog's body shook violently, breath coming in harsh, wet gasps. Snow clung to his fur, to his lashes, to the graying hair around his muzzle. Rex did not fight. He hung there, trembling, as if accepting a judgment he did not understand but would not question. Ryan stepped back. For a second, just one, his shoulders sagged and his face twisted with something dangerously close to grief. Then it hardened again. He turned and walked away, boots crunching into the storm, leaving no clear tracks behind. Miles away, Noah Hayes slowed his patrol truck. Noah was in his late 30s, broad-shouldered, with a face that looked permanently weathered by wind and cold. A scar ran faintly along his left eyebrow, the kind that came from a bad call made years ago and never quite forgiven. His beard was neatly trimmed, his uniform worn but clean, and his eyes, steady, gray, carried the quiet patience of a man who had learned to listen more than he spoke. He had grown up near these woods. He trusted them when they were calm and feared them when they were not. The storm had already pushed him past the point of comfort when he heard it. A sound that did not belong to the wind, a wet, choking noise, broken and irregular. Noah stopped the truck and stepped out. The cold hit him like a wall. Snow stung his face, worked its way into his collar. He followed the sound into the trees, flashlight cutting shaky arcs through the dark. Then he saw the rope. Rex hung from the branch, body limp, legs twitching weakly. His eyes were half closed, his breath ragged and shallow. "No, no, no," Noah muttered. He lunged forward, fingers numb as he fumbled with his knife. The rope fell away, and Rex collapsed into the snow with a dull, heavy thud. Noah dropped to his knees, hauling the dog against his chest, trying to warm him with his own body heat. Rex coughed once, then again. His chest shuddered. He was alive. Noah pressed his forehead against the dog's matted fur, relief cutting through him so sharply it almost hurt. He wrapped his jacket around Rex and lifted him carefully. As he did, his hand brushed the dog's neck. Beneath the fresh burn of the rope, Noah felt something else, a hardened groove, older, scarred, a mark that had healed and been reopened. Noah frowned, shining the light closer. "This didn't start tonight," he said quietly. The wind surged, erasing the last sign of footprints nearby. Somewhere deeper in the forest, a light flickered briefly, then vanished. Noah tightened his grip on Rex and turned back toward the truck, unaware that the storm had only just begun. Rex woke to light that was too bright and smells that did not belong to the forest. The room was warm, painfully so, and the air carried sharp traces of antiseptic, metal, and unfamiliar animals. His body felt heavy, unresponsive, as if the years had finally settled into his bones all at once. When he tried to lift his head, a dull ache spread from his neck down his spine, forcing him to rest again. A woman leaned over him. Her name was Dr. Sarah Whitman, the town's only veterinarian. She was in her early 40s, tall and slim, with straight auburn hair pulled back into a practical knot. Her skin was pale from long winters indoors, faint freckles dusting her cheeks. There was a calm precision in the way she moved, the kind that came from years of stitching wounds without flinching. She spoke softly, even when animals couldn't hear her, a habit born from loss. Her own dog had died years earlier on her operating table, and she had never forgiven herself for raising her voice that day. "You're safe now," she murmured, though Rex could not understand the words. He only understood the tone. Dr. Whitman ran practiced hands along his ribs, his legs, pausing at his throat. Her fingers lingered there longer than necessary. Her mouth tightened. "This isn't just from tonight," she said quietly. Across the room, Noah Hayes stood with his jacket still on, snow melting into dark patches on the floor beneath his boots. He looked out of place among the sterile counters and humming equipment, his broad frame hunched slightly, as if afraid of breaking something fragile. His gray eyes followed every movement Sarah made. "You're sure?" he asked. She nodded once. "There's older scarring. Weeks, maybe months. Whoever did this, it wasn't a one-time thing." Noah exhaled slowly. He glanced down at Rex. The dog's eyes were open now, cloudy with exhaustion, but aware. When Noah crouched beside him, Rex did not bare his teeth or pull away. He shifted his head just enough to rest it against Noah's knee. Most dogs would have snapped, or growled, or at least trembled. Rex did none of that. "Easy, boy," Noah said, surprised by the weight in his own voice. Outside the clinic, the storm continued to rage, but dawn crept in all the same, pale and reluctant. Word spread quickly in a town that small. By mid-morning, everyone knew Hank Caldwell's dog had been found hanging in the woods, and everyone knew who had brought him there. Ryan Caldwell arrived just after sunrise. He stood in the doorway of the clinic, snow clinging to his coat, his face drawn and sharp as if he hadn't slept. The fluorescent lights made the shadows under his eyes deeper, emphasizing the hard lines of his cheekbones and the tightness of his jaw. His beard was darker than Noah remembered from years ago, uneven, as though he had stopped caring where the blade went. He did not step inside. "I want to see the dog," Ryan said. Sarah straightened. "You can, but you don't touch him." Ryan's eyes flicked to her, then to Noah. There was no apology in his expression, no shame, only distance. Noah studied him carefully. Up close, Ryan looked less like a monster and more like a man holding himself together with sheer force of will. His hands were clenched at his sides, fingers reddened from the cold, or from something else. Rex noticed him immediately. Despite the pain, despite the unfamiliar smells, Rex pushed himself upright. His legs shook, nearly buckling, but he managed to stand. Slowly, deliberately, he moved toward Ryan. No growl, no hesitation. Ryan stiffened. "Get him back," he said sharply. Rex stopped a foot away. His tail did not wag. He simply looked up at Ryan, eyes steady, waiting. The same way he had once waited for commands, for approval, for a hand on his head that never came now. Something passed across Ryan's face, fast and ugly. His lips parted as if he might speak, then closed again. He turned away abruptly. "I'm done here," he left without another word. Noah followed him outside. "You can't just walk away," Noah said. "Your father's dog was nearly killed." Ryan laughed, short and humorless. "You think I don't know that?" He finally turned, and for a brief second the mask cracked. Beneath it was exhaustion so deep it frightened Noah. "My father's dead," Ryan continued, "and whatever happened to that dog has nothing to do with you." "Then why does it look like it has everything to do with you?" Noah asked. Ryan's gaze hardened again. "Because people see what they want to see." He walked away, boots crunching through snow, shoulders rigid. Noah watched him go, a familiar unease settling in his chest. He had seen cruelty before. This felt different, like someone trying to outrun a fire already at their heels. Later that afternoon, Noah sat alone in his patrol truck, reviewing Hank Caldwell's death report on his tablet. Official cause: cardiac arrest. Time of death estimated sometime between midnight and dawn. But the details didn't sit right. Hank had been strong for his age, stubbornly so, and the report mentioned a call placed from Hank's phone less than an hour before his death one that had been flagged, then quietly removed from the record. Noah closed the file and stared out at the road. Inside the clinic, Rex lay curled on a blanket Sarah had brought from home. When she approached, he lifted his head weakly, ears twitching. She smiled despite herself. "You don't have it in you, do you?" she said softly. Rex lowered his head again, That evening, as Noah returned to check on him, Rex struggled to his feet once more. He limped toward the door, nose low, following a scent only he could read. Ryan had come back. He stood across the street this time, watching the clinic from the shadows. Rex saw him, and despite everything, took another step forward. Noah noticed then. And in that moment, watching a broken old dog still choose the man who had nearly killed him, Noah understood something fundamental. Ryan Caldwell was hiding something, and Rex knew exactly what it was. Rex recovered enough to walk 2 days later. His steps were slow and uneven, the stiffness in his hind legs more pronounced in the cold. But there was intention in every movement. When Noah clipped the leash to his collar and guided him outside the clinic, Rex did not hesitate. He lowered his nose to the snow-covered pavement and began to pull gently at first, then with quiet insistence. Noah noticed immediately. "Easy," he murmured, though he followed. Rex led him not toward the woods this time, but back into town, toward Hank Caldwell's house. The old place stood unchanged, porch light dark, snow piled high against the steps. Noah had been there once before, years ago, when Hank had still been alive and formidable, standing in the doorway with his arms crossed and suspicion carved into his face. Now the door creaked open to emptiness. Inside, the air was stale and cold. Rex moved slowly through the rooms, tail low, nostrils flaring, as if reading ghosts left behind. He paused at the hallway closet, pawing once at the door. Noah opened it. Behind hanging coats and an old pair of winter boots sat a metal lockbox, scratched and dented with age. Noah crouched, examining it. The lock wasn't broken, but it had been forced open recently and closed again in a hurry. "That's what you wanted me to see," Noah said quietly. Rex sat. Inside the box were folders, yellowed with time, each marked in Hank Caldwell's tight, angular handwriting. Names, license plates, dates, locations sketched in rough pencil lines along the edge of the forest. Some pages were stained with coffee, others with mud. This was not paperwork filed through official channels. This was something Hank had kept to himself. Noah flipped through the documents, his jaw tightening as patterns emerged. Unauthorized truck routes, late-night transfers, vehicles that disappeared into the woods and resurfaced days later across state lines. Hank had been tracking someone operating under the cover of winter and isolation, and he had been close. Noah's phone buzzed. Ryan Caldwell's name appeared on the screen. Noah hesitated, then answered. "I know," Ryan said, before Noah could speak. His voice sounded strained, stripped of its earlier sharpness. "I know what you found." They met an hour later in the same house where Ryan had grown up. Ryan stood by the window, shoulders tense, hands shoved into the pockets of his coat, as if afraid of what they might do if left free. In the dim light, Noah could see how exhausted he looked, not just tired, but hollowed out. "You should have let it go," Ryan said. "My father didn't." Noah placed the folders on the table. He was investigating an operation in the forest, off the books. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. "They came to me," he said, "after he died, before the funeral." Noah waited. Ryan exhaled slowly, as though each word weighed more than the last. "They told me my father hadn't died naturally, that if I wanted proof, all I had to do was keep asking questions, or I could stop." "And Rex?" Noah asked. Ryan's shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of him all at once. They knew about the dog, he said. They knew Rex had been with him on some of those nights. They said Rex was trained to lead, to remember places. They told me if Rex disappeared, everything else would stay buried. He looked down at the floor. They showed me photos, Ryan continued, of things they'd already done to him. Not enough to kill him, just enough to make a point. Noah felt a familiar cold anger settle into his chest. So, you tried to finish it, he said. Ryan flinched. I thought if I did it myself, they'd leave him alone. I thought if it looked like my choice, they'd stop watching. Silence filled the room. Rex lay near the doorway, listening. When Ryan finally looked at him, their eyes met. Rex did not move away. I couldn't do it, Ryan whispered. Not really. I tied the rope where I knew someone might pass. I told myself that if no one came, it would be over fast. That was the lie I needed. Noah said nothing. There was no justification in the world that could erase what had happened. But there was context, and context mattered. Your father, Noah said finally, was protecting you. Ryan let out a bitter laugh. He always thought he knew how. Noah slid one folder across the table. Inside was a single sheet of paper, Hank's handwriting again, shakier this time. If anything happens to me, it's not my heart. Watch the trees. Trust the dog. Don't let them touch my son. Ryan stared at the words until his vision blurred. That night, Rex led Noah again. This time, it was into the forest. They didn't go far, just to a narrow trail, hidden between frozen pines, a place that looked untouched by human hands. Rex stopped at a fallen log, nosing aside snow with careful movements. Beneath it, Noah found a rusted ammo box sealed with duct tape. Inside were flash drives, wrapped in oilcloth. Proof. As Noah straightened, a sound echoed deeper in the woods, the distant crunch of boots on snow, too deliberate to be an animal. Rex's ears lifted. He growled low, not in anger, but warning. Noah killed his flashlight and listened, understanding now that Hank Caldwell had not been chasing ghosts and that the dead man's enemies were very much alive. The storm struck without warning, as if the sky had been holding its breath all day. Snow fell in dense sheets, slashing sideways across the highway, erasing the painted lines and swallowing the asphalt beneath a skin of ice. Ryan gripped the steering wheel, eyes narrowed against the glare of his headlights reflecting back at him in blinding white. The road ahead felt unreal flat, endless, hostile. Rex lay on the passenger side floor, wrapped in a blanket Noah had insisted on lending. His old body was rigid with pain and fatigue, but his head was up, ears twitching at every unfamiliar sound. His breathing was steady, practiced, as though years of riding in patrol cars had trained him to remain alert even when exhausted. Ryan hadn't planned to drive that night, but fear had a way of pushing people into motion. After the discovery in the forest, after the realization that Hank's enemies were still close, still watching, Ryan felt trapped inside the town. Movement felt safer than stillness. Distance felt like control. The highway curved sharply ahead. Ryan eased off the accelerator, but it was already too late. The tires lost grip in a single, silent moment. The steering wheel spun uselessly in his hands as the car slid sideways, then forward, then nowhere at all. Metal screamed against ice. The world tilted violently. Rex lunged. The impact threw Ryan against the driver's side door, pain exploding through his shoulder and ribs. The car skidded, struck the guardrail, and spun again, before crashing nose first into a snowbank. The engine stalled with a choking rattle. For a few seconds, there was nothing but ringing silence. Then the smell hit them. Gasoline. Ryan groaned, trying to move. His seatbelt jammed, cutting into his chest. His vision blurred at the edges, dark spots blooming and fading. He fumbled for the latch with numb fingers that wouldn't cooperate. Rex was already moving. Despite the stiffness in his legs, he forced himself upright, claws scrabbling against the floor mat. He climbed onto Ryan's lap, ignoring the pain that made his muscles tremble. His weight pressed against Ryan's chest, steady, grounding. "Rex," Ryan whispered. The dog barked once short, sharp, not fear, but urgency. He nudged Ryan's face with his nose, then tugged weakly at the sleeve of his coat. Gas dripped somewhere beneath the hood. Ryan tried again, fingers closing around the latch at last. The belt released, and he slumped forward, coughing. Rex immediately shifted his weight, bracing Ryan with his body, preventing his head from striking the dashboard. Outside, the wind howled louder now, rocking the car. Rex jumped down and shoved his nose beneath the door handle, pawing clumsily until it cracked open. Snow burst inside, stinging Ryan's face, but fresh air rushed in with it. "Good boy," Ryan rasped. Rex returned to him, teeth catching the fabric of Ryan's coat. He pulled, not hard, but persistently dragging Ryan inch by inch toward the open door. Every movement cost Rex effort. His back legs buckled twice, yet he pushed on, breath coming in rough, determined huffs. The first spark came from under the hood, just as Rex hauled Ryan onto the snow. Ryan collapsed beside the car, chest heaving, pain screaming through his body. Rex positioned himself between Ryan and the vehicle, body low, as if shielding him from something unseen. A dull boom followed as flames licked up from the engine, orange against the white night. Ryan stared at the fire, then at the dog crouched beside him. Memory crashed into him without mercy. The rope, the branch, Rex hanging in the storm. His throat tightened until he couldn't breathe. "I did this," he said hoarsely. "I almost killed you." Rex leaned into him. The dog's fur was coarse and damp beneath Ryan's fingers, clotted with old scars and new snow. Rex did not pull away. He pressed closer, warmth seeping through Ryan's gloves, as if forgiveness were a physical thing that could be shared. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. By the time Noah Hayes arrived, his patrol truck sliding to a stop behind the wreck, Ryan was barely conscious. Noah leapt out, boots crunching hard, face tight with alarm. "What the hell happened?" he demanded, kneeling beside Ryan. Rex growled softly, not at Noah, but at the burning car. Noah took in the scene in seconds. The skid marks, the ruptured hood, the dog planted protectively against Ryan's side. "He pulled him out," Ryan managed to say. "Saved me." Noah looked at Rex then, not as a victim, not as evidence, but as something fierce and unbreakable. He reached out, steady hand resting briefly on the dog's shoulder. "You did good," he said quietly. Rex did not look at him. His eyes never left Ryan. As the fire crews arrived and the storm swallowed the highway once more, Ryan lay on a stretcher, pain pulsing through him, but something inside had shifted irrevocably. The cold distance he'd wrapped himself in for years cracked under the weight of what Rex had done. In the blur of lights and snow, Ryan turned his head toward the dog. "I won't leave you again," he whispered. "I swear." Rex closed his eyes, just for a moment, as if the promise itself were enough to keep him standing. The forest at night was nothing like it appeared during the day. By daylight, it seemed open, almost forgiving tall pines standing like quiet witnesses beneath the snow. But after dark, the woods closed in on themselves. Branches clawed at the wind. Shadows layered over shadows, swallowing distance and direction until the world narrowed to what the flashlight could touch. Noah adjusted the strap of his pack and glanced at Ryan. Ryan moved carefully, despite the bruises still blooming beneath his coat. His face was pale, jaw tight, pain etched into the sharp angles of his cheekbones. He hadn't slept since the crash. Guilt and adrenaline had replaced rest, keeping him upright when his body wanted to fold. "You good?" Noah asked. Ryan nodded once. "Let's finish this." Rex stood between them, breath puffing white into the cold. His fur was still matted and uneven, scars visible where the coat thinned along his neck and shoulder. One front paw favored the ground more lightly than the other, but his ears were up, his posture alert. At 12 years old, his body was failing, but his instincts were not. They followed the map Hank had drawn, landmarks marked in shaky pencil lines, a frozen creek, a split pine, a ridge overlooking a narrow valley. The deeper they went, the quieter the world became, as if even the forest was listening. The first sound Rex caught was wrong. He stopped abruptly, hackles lifting, a low rumble vibrating in his chest. Noah froze, killing his light. Ryan followed suit, heart hammering. Footsteps, not animals, too measured, too careful. Noah crouched, peering through the darkness. "We're not alone." They moved again, slower now, Rex leading but pausing often, nose testing the air. He guided them off the trail and behind a fallen tree, its trunk half buried in snow. That was when the lights appeared. A pair of headlamps flickered between the trees downslope, followed by the muted voices of men who were not trying hard enough to stay quiet. One of them stepped into a clearing. His name was Caleb Rourke. He was tall and broad, with a thick winter jacket stretched tight across his shoulders. His beard was dense and dark, threaded with early gray, framing a face hardened by years of disappointment. Rourke had grown up in this town, worn a badge briefly before losing it after a questionable use-of-force incident that split the community. Since then, he had drifted odd jobs, security work, always angry at a world he believed had cheated him. Now he carried a rifle like it belonged there. "That's him," Ryan whispered. "He was at my father's funeral." Noah's stomach tightened. "He's working for someone." The men spread out, moving with practiced coordination. This wasn't a random patrol, it was a sweep. Rex growled again, sharper this time. Too late. A branch snapped nearby. A flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, landing inches from Noah's face. "Run!" Noah hissed. They bolted. Snow exploded beneath their boots as they plunged downhill, branches whipping at their faces. Rex surged ahead, barking once a warning, a direction, then veered left toward the creek bed. Shots cracked through the trees. Ryan stumbled, pain flaring in his ribs, but Noah caught his arm and dragged him forward. They slid down the icy bank and crashed onto the frozen creek, ice groaning beneath their weight. Rex skidded to a halt, turning back toward them. Another shot rang out. Rex yelped. He collapsed onto his side, blood darkening the snow beneath his shoulder. "No!" Ryan shouted, dropping to his knees beside him. Rex tried to rise. His legs failed. Noah grabbed Ryan. "We move now!" But Ryan shook him off, hands pressing desperately against Rex's wound. "He saved me. I'm not leaving him." Rex's eyes met Ryan's, steady even through the pain. His tail thumped weakly once, as if urging them on. Noah scanned the trees. The lights were closer now. He made a decision. "On my count," he said. "We distract them. Rex stays quiet." Ryan swallowed hard and nodded. They dragged Rex into a narrow hollow beneath the creek bank, covering him with branches and snow. Rex did not resist. He watched them with unwavering focus, trusting them completely. Noah and Ryan ran in opposite directions. The chase fractured. Shouts echoed. Flashlights swung wildly. Noah doubled back quietly, circling through the trees until he reached a rocky outcrop Hank had marked on the map. Beneath it, hidden by a slab of frozen earth, was a steel container. Inside, ledgers, photos, a satellite phone, and a name written again and again. Wade Mercer, the sheriff. Noah's blood ran cold. Behind him, a voice spoke. "Drop it!" Caleb Rourke stepped into the light, rifle raised, eyes hard, but uncertain. Snow clung to his beard, melting into his skin. "You're too late," Rourke said. "Old man stuck his nose where it didn't belong." "He was trying to stop you," Noah replied. Rourke's jaw tightened. "He was trying to be a hero." A sound cut through the tension. A bark, short, defiant. Rex. Rourke turned. Ryan burst from the trees and slammed into him. The rifle went flying. They crashed into the snow, grappling, fists swinging blindly. Rex dragged himself forward, teeth bared, body screaming in protest as he lunged toward Rourke. A single gunshot echoed into the night. The forest fell silent. Noah stood frozen, heart in his throat, as snow drifted down around them, and the consequences of every choice finally caught up. The gunshot echoed once, then vanished into the trees, swallowed by snow and distance. For a moment, no one moved. Noah Hayes was the first to react. He ran toward the sound, boots slipping on ice, heart pounding so hard it drowned out the wind. His flashlight cut through the dark, beam shaking as it landed on the clearing below. Ryan was on his knees in the snow. Caleb Rourke lay face down several feet away, his rifle half buried beneath frost. Blood spread slowly through the white beneath his shoulder, dark and unmistakable. He was alive, breathing in shallow, furious gasps, his teeth clenched in pain and rage. Rex lay between them. The old German shepherd's body trembled violently. Blood stained the fur along his side, where the bullet had grazed him, tearing through muscle but missing anything vital by sheer chance. His ears were flat, his chest rising and falling too fast, but he was conscious. His eyes never left Ryan. "No. No, no," Ryan whispered, crawling forward. His hands shook as he pressed them against Rex's wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Stay with me, please." Rex licked his wrist once, slow, deliberate, as if to say he was still here. Red and blue lights began to flicker through the trees moments later. Backup had arrived faster than Noah expected, summoned by a call he'd placed earlier from the satellite phone Hank had hidden. State troopers moved in carefully, weapons raised. boots crunching through snow as they surrounded the clearing. Behind them came Sheriff Wade Mercer. He was a tall man in his late 50s, broad in the shoulders, with a posture that radiated authority. His hair was silver, combed neatly back. His face weathered but smooth, too controlled, too practiced. His eyes were pale blue and cold, the kind that learned long ago how to look honest while hiding calculation beneath. "What's going on here?" Mercer demanded. Noah stood, breath fogging in front of him. He held the steel container open, its contents visible even in the dim light ledgers, photos, flash drives. "Enough," Noah said. "It's over." Mercer's gaze flicked briefly to the evidence, then to Rourke on the ground. Something hardened behind his eyes. "You don't understand," Mercer said calmly. "Hank Caldwell made accusations without proof. This forest breeds paranoia." Noah stepped forward. "He had proof, and now so do we." Mercer's mouth twitched. "You're out of your depth, Hayes." One of the troopers spoke up. "Sir, we've confirmed the data. Multiple illegal transfers, weapon shipments, payoffs." Mercer's shoulders sagged almost imperceptibly. For a second, just one, the mask slipped. Beneath it was a man who had made a choice years ago and built an entire life justifying it. Then the mask returned. "I did what I had to," Mercer said quietly. "This town survives because of those deals." "And Hank died because of them," Noah replied. Mercer looked away toward the trees. "He wouldn't stop." The troopers moved in, snapping cuffs around Mercer's wrists. He did not resist. As they led him away, he glanced once at Rex, then at Ryan, as if trying to understand something he never had. The forest exhaled. Hours later, dawn crept slowly across the sky, pale pink bleeding into gray. The storm finally eased, leaving behind a silence so complete it felt fragile. Rex lay wrapped in blankets beside the fire crew's trucks, Dr. Sarah Whitman kneeling next to him. Her auburn hair was loose now, wind-blown, her gloved hands steady as she cleaned and bandaged the wound. "He's strong," she said softly. "Stubborn, just like your father." Ryan nodded, unable to speak. He knelt in the snow beside Rex, ignoring the cold soaking through his pants. His hands rested on the dog's shoulders, grounding himself in the warmth that still existed. "I tried to get rid of you," he said quietly. "I tried to make you disappear." Rex's tail thumped once against the blanket. Ryan bowed his head. His breath hitched, and when he spoke again, his voice broke. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "To you, to him, to everything I ran from." The words fell into the snow and stayed there, heavy and real. Rex shifted, lifting his head with effort. He pressed his forehead against Ryan's chest, just enough contact to remind him he was forgiven. Noah watched from a distance, the weight of the past days settling into something like peace. Hank Caldwell's face lingered in his mind, stern, unyielding, protective to the end. The house no longer felt empty when Ryan returned to it weeks later. The porch light glowed warm against the cold. Inside, the air smelled faintly of coffee again. Rex lay near the fireplace on a thick blanket, his movements slower now, his body carrying the cost of years and one final act of loyalty. But his eyes were calm. Ryan knelt beside him, hand resting on the familiar curve of his neck. They had survived. Outside, snow fell gently, no longer threatening, only quiet. Sometimes, miracles don't come as thunder or fire from the sky. Sometimes, they come quietly, through loyalty that refuses to die, through love that forgives even when it has been betrayed. Rex survived not because he was strong, but because he chose love over pain. And maybe that is how God works in our lives too, through small acts of faith, through hearts that do not harden, even after cruelty. In our daily lives, we may feel abandoned, misunderstood, or broken, but this story is a reminder that God sees what others overlook, and that no act of kindness is ever wasted. Even in the coldest winters of our lives, grace can still find us. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope. Leave a comment below about what this story meant to you or who it reminded you of. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can continue sharing stories of compassion, redemption, and quiet miracles. May God bless you and your loved ones. May He protect those who feel alone tonight. And may faith guide you, even when the road ahead is covered in snow.